And when we talk about study design, we basically mean how we want to do the investigation. Because we said research is an investigation, a scientific investigation. So the study design is about how we want to do that investigation. And so there are many areas of research, right? It could be in household outcomes, market behavior, even space, interactions in society. You can have economic research, political research, all kinds of research, right? But the reason why I chose epidemiology is because that is where you have some of the most intricate designs that have been applied to different areas. Please, just give me a second, please. Let me just pick this call. A quick one. Where's my? Well, okay. Sorry for this. So by the interruption, it's kind of it's a call I need to pick. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. So I can see my screen.
We can.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So as I was saying that, um, the study, the research, the investigation can be in several fields. It can be in politics, it can be in economics, it can be in sociology, it can be in space. It can be in terms of areas of application. It can be market studies. It can be household level studies. It can be in any sector, education, health, or whatever it is. But when we talk about study designs, one area where one has to be extremely methodical, the most care is being given to study designs is in epidemiology, right? So that's why I just want to use that for illustration. And also, when you talk about the gold standard of research design, it's just in epidemiology. The utmost care needs to be taken when you are dealing with human subjects, especially human health, right? The most care needs to be taken in that area in terms of how you conduct your study, how you design it, and how you come up with answers that are credible, right? Because you don't want to come up with answers that will lead you to actions that will ruin lives. So utmost care has been taken. So that's why I chose to look at epidemiology side. All the things we're discussing it will apply to different areas, to different, to a broad set of other subjects. Now, in epidemiology, the broad picture is I want to study, we want to do investigations with the intent to be able to prevent and control disease. Okay, to prevent and control. Now, so in a coordinated plan, I missed a point here. So there are three things we do basically. The first one is that we try to try to see exactly what is happening, what you think is happening, try to do a descriptive analysis. Then, based on the things we are sensing that we're seeing, identify hypothesis or formulate hypothesis on what we think is related, what we think may be causing it, and then we formally test the hypothesis. So now the purpose of design is to direct how we're going to conduct the investigation. Now, in epidemiology, studies fall into two categories. They could be experimental or observational. When I mean experimental, all of us went through biology in secondary school, talk about experiments, right? Where you apply certain treatments to certain elements of a given population. So, and in this case, it involves applying a treatment and then recording what you find. Then it's either you are doing that or you're just observing, right? Observational, in which you are not administering any form of treatment. You're just observing people, and just then based on your observations, you're trying to find test your hypotheses, right? But in the experimental side, you are doing something actively to the population or to a section of the population of interest, and then you are recording, and then you are doing your testing to see whether that treatment has an effect or has no effect. Now, in terms of time frame of studies can be prospective, looking forward into the future, to examine future events, to follow a particular condition or a concern, or follow a disease into the future. For example, when you have National Survey of Youths, longitudinal survey of youths, you want to follow youth ages, that a cohort at age 15, you want to follow them on the reach 64 until they retire, right? 15 is when people enter the labor force. 64 is when they get out of it. Although now, because of the situation, People are saying that a lot of people are still working after 64. A lot of professors don't retire at 64. A lot of people are still at work. Even people that retire from active work, they go somewhere else and they continue working, right? So that we should not say that they won't get end at 64. But prior to now, you can monitor people from age 15 to age 54. You want to see what happens to them in the labor market, right? So you start a study at age 15, and then you are observing them in the future. So that's like prospective. Retrospective studies, they look back, right? Look back in time to study events that have already occurred. Okay. Is my slide moving?
Yes, it is moving.
Thank you. Now, let's start with experimental studies. So what happens in experimental studies is that the investigator determines through a control process the exposure for each individual, let's say in clinical trials or community, in terms of community trial, and then tracks the individuals or communities over time to detect the effect of the exposure. It could be that way. We talk about randomized control trial, right? It's a trial in which, so you say randomized control trial. The idea of, trying to find the impact of a treatment, it's a very painstaking process. So now, there's something we call, maybe you've heard it before, what, how do I say it now? There's something we call, what's this word now? You want to find the effect of A on B, right? Effect of A on B. But there are so many things you need to control for in that analysis so that they do not contaminate what you are seeing as the effect of A on B. A lot of things that may be related to A are related to B as well. You want to control for them, right? So that you don't pick up their effect in looking for effect of A on B, okay? We call them confounders, confounding variables. So they are very, very important, special class of things that investigators try to deal with as much as possible. So one of the ways to deal with them is through randomization. You randomly pick people you are going to trick. To ensure that factors that want to confound the analysis don't confound the analysis. That's the idea of randomization. So randomized control trial in which subjects are randomly assigned to one of two groups. One group is the experimental group, receiving the intervention that's been tested, and the other, we call them the comparison or control group, receiving alternative, conventional, or no treatment at all. Okay? So the two groups are followed up, right, for differences in outcome. And so the differences we see in their outcomes, we take that as a measure of the effect of the treatment. There's a big literature on impact evaluation in which RCT is what I call the gold standard. It's the best practice, right? It takes a lot to be able to come up with the effect of A on B that is not contaminated, that is true, that is exactly the effect. It takes a lot. And the RCT started from medical sciences, epidemiology, but other fields are adopting it, right? They're also doing very rigorous work. In economics, for example, there's a big literature in economics that's about impact evaluation. And randomized control trial is the king. The World Bank spends a lot of money doing randomized control trials all around the world in order to see the effect of A on B, right? Trying to see if we do this intervention, what happens, what do we get? All this intervention may be in entrepreneurship, may be in household feeding, may be in food supply, they may be in anything. They are using this method to be able to see what really is the unbiased, uncontaminated effect of this on that, so that they can help policy thinking appropriately. So, treatment and exposure occur in a controlled environment, basically. Now, clinical trials are the most well-known experimental design. In clinical trials, you randomly assign people into different groups. You're going to test the effectiveness of a, let's say, of a drug or a treatment. And so you have a population of people that look alike. You put them into two groups randomly. You treat one group with the treatment you're looking at. You treat another group with something else that doesn't have that impact. Okay, and then you come up with then you follow them up. And you observe the outcomes and see what happens to them differently. Now, clinical trials use randomly assigned data, whereas there's also community trials, not only clinical community trials. Those ones are not random because you have to select communities. In an experiment, what we're interested in is the consequence of the treatment on some outcomes. So the subject in the study who actually received the treatment are called the treatment group. The subject in the study who received no treatment or a different treatment are called the comparison group. Okay. If you are familiar with medical studies, talk about placebo, placebo. That's like they will administer the treatment to the treatment group and then give placebo to the comparison group. The placebo doesn't have the effect of the treatment side, and it's something that just keeps everything the same as it is. Okay. So the advantage is, if you're able to do experimental studies, for example, randomized control trials, if designed correctly, because there are a lot of RCTs that are not designed correctly, that are contaminated still. If designed correctly, non-contaminated, RCT is the gold standard. It's the strongest, the most convincing form of cause and effect analysis. Most convincing form of it. Okay, so for you, I will call it the gold standard. That's the highest form if you can do it properly. If you can control for everything that needs to be controlled for. RCT is a mother. Is what everyone that is thinking about analysis, effect of this or that, want to attain. But we know that it's very expensive to do. You have to spend money. Then there are certain questions to which RCT is not appropriate. And sometimes it could be unethical, right? For example, to assign persons to certain treatment or comparison groups. It's unethical in some senses that you will apply a treatment to a group and you leave the other group untreated in some areas. Let's say in terms of health, right? In terms of health, or even in some areas, they won't allow you to do that. They will not permit you to do that because it's unethical. And the way it's unethical may differ from place to place. There are communities there are areas, there are languages, or there are ethnic groups where some things you can't do. They won't let you do it. But in other groups, they may allow you to do it. Okay, so depending on the orientation. So that's randomized control trial. It's very common because that's what's called gold standard. So if someone asks you what's the gold standard in impact evaluation, gold standard in cause and effect analysis, is RCT, randomized control trial. Now, so I mentioned experimental studies. I want to talk about observational studies now. But then I don't want to complicate things too much. We have something we call quasi-experimental analysis, quasi-experimental design, okay, that has a mix of experimental design and observational design. Let me explain it briefly before I go into observational studies. Now, the critical thing about RCT and the mass control trial is that you don't have control in who belongs to. It's like you are blind, right? you are blind to the fact that the person you put into treatment and the person you put into the non-treatment groups, you are blind as to who they are. You are blind. You just pick them randomly, right? You don't predetermine who is there and who is there, because if you are to predetermine, some of the reasons, some of the parameters that enter your choice of who is there, some of those parameters may be linked in some ways to the outcome you are trying to test for. So I've seen a lot of studies that are quasi-experimental in design. Not experimental. People are not doing experiments. Let's say some studies use twins data. Okay? So twins, twins, they came from the same womb, probably came out the same day, or maybe maybe a day, maybe some hours apart. Both of them, they came out from the same biological environment. They were exposed to the same treatment when they were in the womb. They were exposed to the same environment. They came out from the same condition. So in terms of differences in their health status until they came out, we should expect no difference at all, because they were together in the same sack, right? In the same sack, the same nutrition to receive. If there anything about their mother's health that should affect them, it should affect both of them, right? Equally, right? That is, it should affect both of them. So people use twin studies as a kind of quasi-experimental study, right? Design, in the sense that, let's say the twins came out. One is a boy, one is a girl. The assignment of gender, right? Sorry. Yeah. It's possible that the assignment of gender is nobody has control over it, right? Any difference that you observe between the pair, between the pair, is mostly a function of what they experienced after they came out of the womb, right? So that is, in terms of selecting, so if you get a pair of twins and one gets a treatment, the other one didn't get a treatment, okay? You know that the effect of the treatment is not predetermined by some conditions, right? I mean, the difference you observe in their outcomes, you can't say it can be contaminated by differences in their situation before they were born. No, you can't say that, because they were exposed to the same thing, the same situation before they were born. Okay, so people have also used different. So if you have a data, let's say demographic and health surveys, where you have twins, let's say, where you can identify twins, you can see a pair of twins from the same mother. That is, you didn't do the treatment, but the fact that they came out from the same place, in which everything happens to them thereafter, is not likely to be correlated to what happened before they were born, right? That's if people have used that as a form of quasi-experimental. It's not experimental though, but it has some elements, some features of experimental studies. Okay, now let's come to observe. I can talk about others. I've actually done one by myself, a kind of quasi-experimental study before. Now let's come to observational studies. Observational studies are in which the investigator simply observes the exposure, right, and the disease status of each participant, and the formality test hypothesis. So there are three types of that. Cross-sectional observational study, in which a sample of persons from the population are enrolled and exposures and outcomes measured at the same time. Now, outside of health, for example, if you look at things like demography and health surveys is a cross-sectional data. You observe many households, many people at the same time, and then you collect data on them, on their background, on their outcomes, on their determinants, and so on and so forth. That is, you collect data on a cross-section of households, cross-section, different elements, different members of the population at the same time. That's cross-sectional. You measure, you observe them, and did your measurement at the same time on a large number, on a cross-section of study participants. In longitudinal observational study, you are observing the same elements over a period of time. So the elements you're observing is fixed, but you are observing them over a period of time, repeatedly. Let's say every year. Sometimes you hear longitudinal survey of youths. That is, you start with a group of youths, and then you are observing them over time. The same cohort of youths. You are observing them every year. You call them to find out where they are. You are collecting data on them every year, annually. Some every 2 years, some every 3 years, right? Maybe from time they left school until they die. Sometimes you follow them up. The same elements follow them up over time. That's longitudinal. But in cross section, the time is fixed, right? The period in which you are collecting data is fixed. The period is fixed, but the elements, there is variation in the elements that you are observing, right? You fix the time, but you vary the elements you are observing. In longitudinal, you fix the elements, you vary the time of the time during which you are observing them. Okay. Then you have ecological studies, right, in which your observation is not separate individuals but groups, right? Groups of maybe a community, a town, or something like that. A group that you're observing over time. Okay. Observational studies are non-experimental, right? They're observational because you are not doing any intervention. You're just observing, right? No intervention, as I mentioned. No intervention. Treatment and exposures occur in non-controlled environment, right? If you are using, so if you are looking at the effect of X on Y in an observational study, you didn't do any control. You didn't control for anything. You didn't treat and you didn't treat the person and not treat that person in a in a controlled environment. It's non-controlled. Maybe you're looking for those who experience this versus those who experience it. For example, those who you want to see the effect of early education on income trajectory, on income later in life. So in your sample, you have some people that had early education. You have some people that just went straight to primary school, right? Early education, you get between ages 3 and 5. So you in your sample, you will pick those who went to that early education, and then you have in the sample you have people that didn't go to early education, just went to primary school, and then so those are two sets of people in the same observational study, in the same cross-section data, and then you are looking at maybe the trajectory of these people that had early education. You are comparing with those who do not have early education. It's so you can say, oh, this people has an experience I'm looking for, this people don't have the experience I'm looking for, but you didn't design it, you didn't treat anybody. The experiences they are having, it wasn't in a controlled environment. Okay. And individuals can be observed prospectively, retrospectively, or instantly. Okay. So that's observational. I'm talking about experimental, I'm talking about observational, then let's say analytical studies. So analytical studies are also observational studies, but they have some specific characteristics, some kind of distinction. So there are two major examples, right? We have case control studies and observation, and then cohort studies. Okay. Now, so in epidemiology, you use case control studies, observational studies. You enroll a group of persons with certain disease, and another group without the disease, right? And then you compare their difference in exposure behavior over time, right? Sorry, you compare their experiences, right, and differences in exposures, in behaviors. Another characteristic is to identify and quantify associations and test hypotheses and identify causes, right? So, an observational design comparing exposures in disease cases, all right, versus healthy controls from the same population, okay? Exposure data are collected retrospectively, and is the most feasible design where the disease outcomes are rare. That's in epidemiology, basically. The strength of that is that it's less expensive and less time consuming, and it's efficient for studying diseases that are very rare. Okay, but the issue is that it's not appropriate when disease outcome for a study for exposure is not known outside of study, when exposure measurements are taken after disease occurrence, or when disease status can influence selection of subjects. Okay, so I'm sure. So case control. So case, right, and then control. Okay. The other one is cohort studies. It's just an observational design. You are comparing individuals with a known risk factor or exposure with others without risk factor or exposure. Well, it's said to be the best observational design. Just like I said, cohort studies. A set of people that finish high school the same time, or a set of people that enter the labor market at the same time. A set of people that let's say alumni, right? They had alumni set of 1900. Right? You study them over time, right? And so you are comparing them. So you might say that this is longitudinal because you fix the elements and you are studying them over time. But in this case, there are some nuances anyway because case controls are very specific, right? Very specific to specific things, right? It's based on exposure to certain diseases. And you basically hear about this mostly in health epidemiologic studies. We don't talk about case control studies in, say, economics, for example, right? It's not that we don't do that. So case control and cohort studies are mostly in terms of health. Those who want to study health. So best observational design. Okay, so did I say okay? This one is most feasible design, right? Case control. But cohort study is best observational design because what you're looking for is looking for difference in risk in incidence also of a disease over time. In terms of the strength, status, exposure status determined before disease detection, right? And the subjects selected before disease detection, you can study several outcomes for each exposure, right? So you pick a set of people, and in this cohort, these people, they have this risk factor, these people don't have this factor, and then you study them over time. It's expensive, time consuming, inefficient for rare diseases, and then one of the problems is that you can have challenges of loss to follow up because some people might drop out of the study. And if those who drop out of the study if you have characteristics that are correlated, right, with the outcome you're looking for, then the conclusions you're getting from your comparisons may be biased. Okay. As much as the reason why they take much care like this is to just avoid bias, right? To avoid coming up with a biased form of finding, right? Because if you go to design treatments, go to design healthcare solutions, healthcare interventions based on results that are biased, then you have a problem. Right now, a lot of times when there's a problem now we have around the world, particularly in the US, that when you talk about clinical trials, right? So before drugs are released into the market, they go through testing, right? They go through testing. So what they want to do is that they want to test the drugs on real people, right? On real people, and look at the effects. Look at whether the drugs actually do what we do what they are supposed to do or not. So what they will do is that they will recruit people into treatment and control studies, right? Treatment and control areas, and then give the treatment to a group, give the placebo to another group. Now, you know, white people, black people, Latino people, Asian people, we have different body makes, and sometimes what people are seeing now is that those drugs are tested, and then they pass. The results, they submit them to the drug approving agency because they've passed the test of efficacy. So, and then the drugs are released, to be produced, to be distributed into the market. Now, imagine that during the clinical control trial, the population on which they tried it were dominantly white people. Let's assume dominantly white people. There is something going on now, actually. Dominantly white people. So, and the drug passed. So, but the drugs are going to be consumed by not just white people, but also white and black and Latino and people from different areas and some different ethnic groups or different races. Now, what people are observing now is that the efficacy of drugs tend to be lower, right? Tend to be lower among blacks, even though the drug passed the test of being efficacious up to a certain extent, which qualifies to be released. But the issue is that they did the clinical trials on this population that is dominantly white. Okay? So if there are things in the body of whites that make them to respond more than they will have been if we have equal number of blacks participating in the studies. And you know the reason why blacks don't participate a lot? Because they are suspicious of white people's intention. So now, after drugs have been tested and then they're being used in hospitals and clinics, we are still observing that even though we treat people with these same new drugs and so on and so forth, the blacks are still not responding as well. Therefore, the health outcomes with people are seeing among blacks are less positive than among the whites. So that's causing a problem right now. And in fact, people are looking for ways to get around that. And the people are saying, hey, why don't you go do this test? Take your population from people that are white and the people that are black. Go to Nigeria now. Nigeria is the most populous black country on earth. Go and get your sound population in Nigeria. Some people are having that conversation, right? So in fact, sometimes they actually pay people to enroll. There are people to enroll in those tests, but you know there's a lot of cynicism around it. So I mean, a lot of things complicate. A lot of things make simple things difficult. I mean, around the world, particularly when you're doing clinical trials, testing new drugs, and how people respond to it. It's really a difficult area, and people are still researchers, investigators are still finding issues in terms of getting the population to test the drugs with. A lot of people don't want to participate in the studies, but unfortunately, if they get sick, those studies that led to the passing to the approval of those drugs, right, in which they participated less, those drugs are going to be administered to them when they fall sick. So it's like I don't know, maybe just shortening oneself or not, or not understanding the potential impact of not participating in those studies. So now I've talked about experimental studies. I've talked about observational studies. I also talk about maybe quarter experimental studies. You can, you can consult resources here and there, and able to put them together. Now, analytical studies, the case control and the core studies, right? Now, we also have descriptive studies, case reports, and case series. It's very simple. Case report, that's one case of unusual finding, right? So there is a case of maybe a previously on that on the on undescribed disease, or an unexpected link between diseases, unexpected new therapeutic effect, unexpected adverse event, and just on an unexpected case that we're seeing, right? That's it, like a case report. You document it, right? Of a case. We are seeing this case that it is emerging, this case emerging, right? And you're just describing, because you're looking at the data and describing it. You're observing it. You're looking at data. From the data or from your interactions, from observations. You are seeing something. So now that's for one case. But when you have multiple case of findings, then you call them case series, right? Experience of a group of patients with similar diagnoses. Case will be identified from a single or multiple sources, generally reports on new or unique conditions. I don't want to go too deep into these things because we are not all epidemiologists and so on and so forth. So, but these are like descriptive studies, right? And this is how investigation starts. Investigation starts when you're just observing, looking at data and looking at what is new, what you're seeing new, what trend you're seeing new. If it's about one specific case, right? That's a case report. If it's about multiple cases, we call that case series, right? That's in epidemiology. Now, when you talk about descriptive epidemiology, then you are talking about so the one case, the many cases, and then you bring it up to population level. Then you talk about descriptive epidemiology. So these descriptive studies, right? They give rise to hypothesis formation, similar to descriptive statistics, right? In statistics, when you have data, you have observations. What do you start doing first? You start tabulating them. You start looking at the measures, different measures. You start querying the data. You start looking at measures of central tendency, measures of dispersion, measures of shape, right? Measures of cortices or whatever it is, and so on and so forth. So you start looking at all those measures, and based on those measures, you start some ideas start coming up in your mind. You start thinking, is this what's happening? Can it be this? Can it be that? So can it be that you are doing? Those are already leading you to potential hypotheses that you'll be testing, potential things to investigate. Exactly. So potential things to investigate. So the descriptive statistics, what it does is that, and generally, this is one bad practice I've seen around here. I've seen a lot of people doing research, especially in economics. Those are doing macroeconomics. That's why I just think that a lot of times they're just writing rubbish. They're writing nothing because there's nothing in the papers. Why would somebody tell me that he has a piece of research? You will do introduction, literature review, model selection, and then after selecting the model, you come and give me the results of regression. The question is, I can't even see the data. I can't even see the descriptive analysis of what I'm talking about. I can't see the data at all. I don't know anything about the data. You're just giving me results. The results from my perspective, they can be written by anybody. They can be cooked up. And as I've said it before, a lot of Nigerians, they cook up research, they cook up papers, they cook up results. You will not see the data that they are analyzing. You won't see the descriptive. You have to show us the descriptive statistics for us to see exactly what motivated this research question. What did you observe? What did you observe that led you to this question you are investigating? You won't see that in a lot of other papers. You won't see that. What you just see is some models, some results, and they say they've written a paper, and they put it in journals that people that. Who is that? Very good papers. If you read a very good paper, the paper has to tell you exactly. You will see the descriptive analysis that motivates the research question. the hypothesis formation. Okay. Now, I can't say this more than I'm supposed to. I cannot emphasize the need of data. Data is what you can't do research without data. You cannot start doing it introduction, literature review, methods. There's no data. You've not seen anything in the data, and you say you're writing paper, empirical paper. You see, you're writing introduction, writing literature review. You've not seen data. You have not examined anything. I can't even say the statistics that's motivating your thinking, right? About this thing, you're just writing introduction. I want to study this introduction, literature review, blah 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 blah. There is no data, no analysis, and you're writing. What are you writing about? Right? So I understand that in macro, because they think that's the gold standard of research. I've had arguments with people a lot that this thing you are doing, it doesn't make any sense at all. You know what they told me? They said you are cheating. That you are cheating. How can you start with data? How can you start with data, looking at data before you start writing a paper? I told them, okay, so if I don't see the data, if I don't see something that ignites my attention, that caught my attention, something that gives me some maybe an hypothesis I want to test. What am I doing writing a paper? What's it about in research? What am I investigating? What you're investigating should be driven by some things you have observed in the data, either cursory observation. Very good papers that are very influential, they have these elements in them. But here people don't just write anything. They just want to put in some journal because they want to get promoted from a lecturer to lecturer one to senior lecturer to reader to professor. And then when they become professors, then the question is, so what? Why are you a professor? So what do you know? And if you look at the papers they publish, you won't see anything to learn in them. Right? There's no serious thing. You can't say exactly what all the papers, what informed this paper. Oh, it's just a good idea, and so on and so forth. Okay, don't let me talk too much about that because I have just a few minutes more in the next. So the same thing in epidemiology. These observations, case reports, case series, and it's after you've done this that you can think about, so what do I think is the hypothesis? Having observed these things that I want to test. Some observation leading you to develop an hypothesis to be tested. Now, that's in descriptive and evidence. In the descriptive, the hypothesis testing, whether it's case control, whether it's cohort study, whether it's cross-section analysis you want to do, you are testing, you are collecting data to test the hypothesis because you are observing people, and then you are using the data from your observations, right, in order to test that. So the randomized control trial, this one usually when you are testing, when you are doing evaluation, right? When you are evaluating the impact of something on something, right? Or it's also that's like those ones are in the body of analytical epidemiology, this is what you think, but those ones are like the gold standard. So every method. So once you do the descriptives, you get your hypothesis you want to test. Then, depending on the subject of interest, whether you're going to do cohort studies, case control, cross-sectional, or you're going to have to go and do randomized control trial if you have the money, or you're going to do ecological studies, whatever it is, all those ones will be determined by that. The bottom line is this. Number one, your study design has to be based on the good understanding, has to be determined by what you are studying. That's number one. Your study design will be determined by its feasibility, right? Is it feasible within this given period of time? There could be different designs that you can choose from, but you have to select one that is most suitable so that when you do the analysis and say this is my finding, your finding is not controvertible. What I see around here is that mostly people are excited because I'm an economist. So what I see is people they want to write a paper, just pack data into regression, other least squares, coefficients. Oh, this one's significant, that one's not significant, and that's all. They have a paper to write. In demography, for example, people just pack data into regression models, just collect a lot of variables, just pack them into regression analysis, adding variables, removing variables. This one's significant now, but if we add this one, it's not that significant. So there was a time I was teaching in a place, and all the master students, all of them are coming out with, I want to study the socio-economic determinants of this thing. Another person will show up. I want to investigate, I want to have my master's thesis on this socio-economic determinant of that. Then I asked them a question. Who told you, who put this in your mouth? That everything you are doing must be socio-economic determinants of so. There was even a joke of a lady that was doing an analysis. That was doing chi-square test of regions. Chi-square test of regions. Who told you that chi-square test you can do regions? Because you coded regions 1, 2, 3, 4. So chi-square test region. Up to today, if I say she will ask, she will tell me, chi-square of regions. So there are a lot of abuses because people don't understand really. They don't have good grasp about study designs. And your study design is the center, right? It tells us whether your research is believable or not, right? We're going to use to evaluate your finding. A lot of findings you read are in papers, they are useless. In most of them, they are useless because the way people are trained to do research, to write papers, it's just junky, right? It's just junks. There was a time somebody in Kenya, just talk about one day, and he said, "Who is better teaching these people how to do analysis?" He said he found somebody a data of a sample of, let's say, 15, and he has 10 variables in the regression. That is junk, right? Because not properly been taught about study design, about after study design, about efficiency of tests, levels of confidence of tests, and so on and so forth. If you want to be able to do solid research, you need to be mindful, you need to understand exactly these issues. So you have a lot of studies to do. All right, I think I'll stop here for today. Maybe I can take a few questions still because today we're combining classes. This 3 minutes to 9. My colleague comes in at 9 o'clock now. I guess maybe I can take one question. Any questions? Hello? Hello?
Yes, can hear you, sir.
Okay. Any question before I drop out?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, concerning getting data.
Right.
Yeah, I understand that sometimes this can be quite expensive to get data, and I'm not sure some of the sources where you can get data. Are there any guidelines on this?
Okay.
On how
All right.
to get database?
Okay. So data for research, right? Okay. Okay. We'll provide that. So there are different sources of data depending on the area of your interest. Data for research.
Okay.
So there are a lot of things you can pick on the shelf. They are useful in some senses. There are small scale data collection that you can do. For example, last year we ran a program that is where we told the students to go collect data. I mean, I think maybe 4 of them used data from the same study because they did the questionnaire by themselves, and it cost us about maybe 600,000 to run the survey. So some low scale, then some large scale. So data collection could be expensive, but your ability to actually generate insights that really answer our questions sometimes you will need to think about some primary survey, right? And in fact, if you are looking at marketable research, if you want to be a researcher, you should think more on being able to do primary surveys by yourself and to get trained on what it entails to be able to do a primary survey research. Okay, so I'll just say this is a minute to nine, and so you have the two session now. So, but we will say address that question, right? Please remind me so that I can give you a list of sources, right? In terms of data you can pick from here and there. In fact, a lot of people are doing research, and you can request that data and understand it to you. Say, I read the paper on this also. I like your data. I want to use the data for this analysis. Please, can you share with me? And they will share with you, right?
Okay.
In the West, too, Africans don't share their data, but people in the West they share their data. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. You can range for experimental data to observational data, whatever it is. Longitudinal surveys, cross-sectional surveys, all kinds of data out there that people have used and are willing to share, right? But Nigerians, I mean, Africans don't like sharing their data because they think that the person will use my data to make progress and it will make progress more than me, right? This penny wise pound foolish way of thinking. All right, so let me drop off here so that my colleague can come in. Thank you very much, and have a nice, wonderful day. See you on Monday. Bye.
Okay. So we are going to look at PowerPoint today. I hope you have your systems with you and then you have PowerPoint open on your system. I'm just going to give you about 3 minutes to get this done. This session is a hands-on session. Okay, just give me a thumbs up when you are on it. Okay, Jacob Bello. Oh, okay. We can go ahead. I'll give you some time to replicate what I have on my screen on yours. Okay, I guess you are done typing that. Um, then this. Please give me a thumbs up when you are done typing. You don't need to type everything. I just need you to have some content on your slides. Okay, so I'll go from the simple to advanced. Basic things we can do, then up to advanced things we can do on our presentation while preparing our presentation. Okay, assuming you are new to PowerPoint, PowerPoint is used for presentation. Maybe you want to, you see the lecture we just had, assuming it was presented using something like Microsoft Office, you wouldn't enjoy it. But in PowerPoint, you summarize your points and then you prepare a presentation. Let's look at some elements of a powerful presentation. Your message has to be clear and concise. I see some people, when they prepare slides, it's very verbose. You have a lot of, it's too wordy, that once somebody looks at it, it's difficult to pick out the message that you are trying to pass across. Then it's also good to have an engaging opening so that you'll be able to carry your audience along. Sometimes when you begin to speak or to present something and you are not able to connect with your audience at the beginning, you've lost them. They may not want to follow you to the end. But imagine carrying people along from the beginning. They would definitely want to follow you till the end. Then again, if you are using visuals, it's good to use strong visuals, effective storytelling, then audience interaction. Make sure you know who your audience. For instance, if I'm preparing a presentation for primary school students, I'm going to use a lot of transitions and animations because I know they would like that. But if you are preparing a presentation maybe for university lecturers and you put a lot of transitions and animations, they may get distracted. So it's good to know your audience and then how best to communicate effectively and interact with your audience. Again, be confident while delivering your content, and always give them a memorable closing, something they will take away. Even if they forget every other thing, the closing should be memorable so they would have something to go home with. Okay, so this morning we don't have any specific topic we are handling, but we are just going to see some things we can do on PowerPoint to help us prepare powerful presentations. Give me a thumbs up if you are following, please. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so I guess we know how to use PowerPoint. Assuming you are new on PowerPoint, okay, I just created a new presentation. The first thing you usually see is the title slide. If you want to add a new slide, you can add it from your home. Now, if I notice that there are two clickable areas here, if I click on this, it just goes ahead to add a slide for me. But if I click on this, it gives me room to choose the type of slide I want to add. Is it title and content or section header or what kind of? But I'm good with the title and content slide. So these are title slide. you give it the title that you want. Then you keep adding contents the way you want, depending on what you're presenting, the number of slides you. Again, I forgot to talk about timing. It's good to know how long you have to present what you want to communicate with your audience. Imagine you are given a time slot for maybe 10 minutes and you have 20 slides. It's not feasible. So for 10 minutes, you can use up like 4 slides. You make sure you try to communicate what you have in 4 slides. Okay, so going back to this. So we have our title slide already. We have a second slide containing some things. Then we have another slide. So you see this third slide is a title and content slide. Oh, sorry, a title slide. Assuming I added a title slide and I don't want this to be a title slide, from here I can come and change the layout. Rather than deleting and adding again, I can just come here to layout and change the slide layout to, let's say, title and content. So let's go ahead. Let's go straight to adding things to our slide. Maybe on this my title slide, I want to add a picture on this my title slide. How am I going to add the picture? Remember, oh, somebody said he cannot see my slides. Can you see my slides, please? I guess it's your network. Please respond. Is the slide visible? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah, we can see. Yes, we cannot see.
Okay. If you can't see my screen,
Okay, if you can't see my screen,
try to check your network. Maybe
try to
location. Oh, what's green? Okay. All right. So, assuming we want to insert a picture to our, we don't want a blank, we don't want our title slide to be just like this. We want to insert a picture. So we go to insert. Going to the insert button or tab rather, these are the things, all these things can be inserted. So pictures. If you already have a picture that you've downloaded, you can use it. Let me see what pictures I have here. Oh, I should have downloaded one. Okay. Okay, so I have this picture. I can resize. Remember what we discussed initially about resizing pictures. Somebody can decide to resize this picture this way. And now this does not, okay, this does not look so bad. But imagine it's the picture of a human being we are resizing. It's not going to look good at all. So let me see, insert picture. What do I have here? Oh, okay. So let me just use this picture I have. I want this picture to cover my whole screen. Imagine that if I resize it up to this point, I still have space here. So I can resize it to however I want it to be and then crop it. Oh, sorry. I want to crop it to fit my screen. Crop. The reason why I'm cropping it is, okay, so I have space here. I still have space crop. So I've cropped it now to fit my screen. Now this picture is covering what I have. I mean, it's covering this. So what am I going to do? I can send this picture to back. If I click on this, can you see arrange? This is my home tab. Whether I'm on the home tab or I go to picture tools, I can still see this arrange, bring forward, send backward. So I want to send this picture that is selected to back. So I've sent it to back, but my text is not visible because of contrast. I want this text to be visible. I can do it in different ways. I can decide to maybe use a white text, preparing powerful presentations. This one I can also decide to, select this and use a white text. But this is still not wonderful. It's still not very visible. Are there more things we can do? Yes. There is something we can do. We can apply a kind of contrast. Okay, so let's do it in two ways. I can decide to insert a shape. This is a rectangle, so it has covered everything. I can decide to use this rectangle to cover everything. And then maybe let me send it to back. So I've sent it behind these two text boxes, but the picture is still not visible. I want to apply some kind of transparency to this shape. So I make sure the shape is selected. Drawing tools. How do I go to? Okay, I can go to design and click on format background. Now I click on the shape. This shape is selected. Presently has a solid fill. I can change the fill color, let's say to orange, or let's say to any other color. But assuming we want to maintain this blue color, so I can vary the transparency, but I'm not seeing any significant difference. Let me change it to white. Now as I'm varying the transparency, you see what's happening. Okay, so having changed the transparency, maybe I want to change back this font to, let's say, black. So now I have a picture. I have a transparent overlay on the picture, and I also have my font. Another way to do this, maybe assuming I don't want to use the overlay, I can delete the overlay. I still have this. I still have my text. Now I can fill the text. I can give the text box rather a fill color and then vary the transparency. Imagine I vary the transparency to maybe like 40%. This one where I have click to add subtitle. I give it a fill also, maybe a white fill. The transparency now is set to 0. Oh no, not this. I can also vary the transparency. Maybe I want uniform transparency, 40 for both of them. So this way, I have a contrast between this, the picture I have on my title slide and then the text box that was used on my title slide. Let me use somebody's name here, by Oyebamiji. Remember, these text boxes can be resized however you want it to be. Okay, so are we good? You can decide to do your title slide in different ways. I just kind of thought of how you can make your title slide different from the normal title slides we usually have. Okay, so I'm going to insert a new slide after this, and it will be a title slide too. Let's say I have it as preparing powerful presentations too. Okay, so there are other things we can also insert. We can insert shapes, smart art. Let's talk about shapes. Sometimes you want to create your own shape. Maybe, okay, so I insert a shape. This is my shape. Maybe I insert another shape. Let's say this. If you want to draw a perfect circle in PowerPoint, hold down your shift and you draw. If you don't hold down your shift, your circle will not be perfect. So I've inserted the perfect circle. What can we do with these shapes? Let's assume I duplicate this, Control D to duplicate. Then I want to edit this shape to become a rectangle. So I've created a rectangle. Now, if I select these two shapes together, there are things I can do. I can merge, union. Using mesh shapes, you can do a union, combine, fragment, intersect, subtract. So with this, I can create any kind of shape I want on PowerPoint. Maybe I want to fragment. Fragment, you break it. Oh no, this is not what I wanted to do. Undo. Okay. So I've selected both. If I say combine, let me see what I have that combine. No, I don't want to combine. If I say intersect, okay, intersect. Yeah, so I have this. So I have this as a shape now. I can decide to use this effect. I can decide to use this to create different effects on my slide. Sometimes you want to create, imagine I have this. This can be a design. If I format this appropriately, I can use this as a design, depending on the concept I have on my mind. So you can create different kinds of shapes and then use it to create the effect you want. Again, imagine I can combine these two shapes together. So maybe I can make this one shape. And note again that you can write inside a shape. So using this, I can create any kind of illustration I want. I mean, using insert shapes and all these combine options, merging shape options that we have in PowerPoint. You can also edit shape. You can edit the points of a shape, but I don't want to go into this now. I guess we know about shape styles. There are quick styles. These are quick styles you can apply to your shape. You also have your shape fill. Maybe I want to change the fill color to something else. Let's say this color. If you notice, this shape has an outline. I can decide to remove the outline, no outline. Or I can decide to increase the weight of the outline. Maybe I increase it to this point. I can even change the outline color to another color. You can use dashes rather than having a solid outline. You can decide to use dashes for your outline. So maybe I use this. I can also decide to say no outline. So now my shape does not have an outline. Okay, again, we can insert tables, we can insert smart art, we can insert video, we can insert audio. You can even use PowerPoint to record your screen. You can do screen recording using PowerPoint. Okay, now let's go to design. I'm going to close this. If I click on design, there are different themes we can use. But sometimes when you are preparing your presentation, imagine other people too are going to prepare theirs and are going to use these themes you have here. You want to make your own different. You don't want yours to be like their own. So you can create your own theme. You can create your own design the way you want it to be. And usually when you create yours, it's usually more beautiful than these. But let's just talk about some of these themes. Assuming I choose this theme, for instance, coming to this part, there are variants. So this is the one that is here originally. But if I choose a different variant, I can choose a different variant. Okay, so assume I choose this variant. I can even come here, change the colors. As I'm clicking on this, the color is switching. Maybe I want to use a grayscale. I click on this. There are fonts also, effects, and background styles. But I don't want to use the Microsoft theme. So I would go back to what I had originally. So this is blank, not any of these themes. I want to talk about this format background. So if I click on format background, it shows me this interface. Now this is for this slide. I want to format the background for this particular slide. Presently, the background is using a solid fill and the color is white. Assuming I change the color, let's say to this color, you see, it has formatted the background and it has given it this color. Again, you can vary transparency. As you vary the transparency, you see the effect. So assuming I leave it the way it is. Okay, you can also use gradient fill. We know what gradient is. Okay, so now this has a white color. This one has, maybe assuming I decide to change the color of this gradient, let's say to something else. This, I can change it to, let's say, this color. And then this, I can change it. I'm just trying to use different colors to show you the contrast in gradient. As I move this, something is happening. There are different, you can choose your type. Is it radial? Is it rectangular? Is it a path? Is it from So assuming I leave it with linear, you can also change the direction. Maybe I want it this way. So this is what I have here. Okay, you can vary the transparency. Like, I can add more gradient stops. If I click on this, this is to add and this is to remove. So this is all these things are gradient stops. On this we have 4 gradient stops. You can add more, you can remove. Maybe I decide to remove this, I can remove it. So I have it this way. So okay, this is another way to format the background. If you click on apply to all, it applies it to all your slides. But maybe you just want it on one slide. You can also use picture or texture as your slide background. For instance, assuming you want to use a picture, you click on insert picture from file if it's a file that is saved on your computer. So so I have this. Remember, I can set the transparency so that what I have on my slide can be visible. So I've just changed the transparency of that picture I just inserted. I can also use a pattern fill. So this is a pattern fill. This I can decide to hide background graphics. Okay, so let me take it back to solid fill and change the color back to white. So this is about formatting the background of our slides. Please give me a thumbs up if you are following. Thank you. Okay, so what are we going to do next? I want us to look at creating, I want us to look at doing all these things from the slide master. Now we are doing all these things one by one, but you can decide to change how okay, so imagine having to do these things for each of these slides individually. You can decide to do everything at once from your slide master. So I'm going to switch to this other presentation. I have no content here. Let me move some things from here to here. Okay. Okay. So now I want to use the slide master to do what I've just done, or rather to work on my slides. If I click on view, you're going to see there are different views here. You have the normal view, outline view, slide sorter. Now, what we are interested in is the slide master. What's the function of the slide master? In the slide master, you can design your layout the way you want it to be. And whatever you do on the slide master applies to all the other slides. Okay, so now we are on the slide master view. Here you have the main slide. Whatever I do on this applies to all these other slides. For instance, if I click on insert, maybe I decide to insert a shape. Let's say I insert this shape. Just notice that it inserts it across all these. If I close the master view, you see what I've inserted. I can't edit this except I go back to the master view. I can edit it from the master view. So going back to the slide master, now I have this here. If I move it to this side, it moves. Okay, if I delete this and then I come to this and let's say insert a shape. Where are you? It inserts only on this one. But what I want, the effect I want to be applied to all the slides, I'm going to do it on this particular one. So assuming here, I want to insert. So let's just create our own style the way we want it to be. You see, I have this everywhere. I want to remove the outline and then I want to use this style. Okay, so I have this here. My text box, I'm going to move it up, bring forward, bring to front. I have my text box here, and then I want the font color for my text box to be white. Okay, so if I close the master view, you see what has happened. If I add a new slide, it's going to be in this format. So rather than having to do something one after the other for all the slides, I can go to my slide master and get it done. But my title slide is not looking good. Going back to view slide master, I can come to this particular one. You see, this is my title slide. I can work on this title slide. So the font for this now is white. I want to change the font color to black so that the text will be visible. Now I can't delete this. I can't delete this. What I can do is I'll come to my slide master and click on hide background graphics. So if I close my master view, I have this. Okay, coming back to my slide master again, I can decide to change the font. I can decide to change the font. If I come here now, it's using the Calibri font. I don't want the Calibri font. Maybe I want this font. If I click on this and close, so you see it has changed the font across all my slides. Okay, maybe again, what do I want to do? I want to insert a logo. Imagine having to insert a logo on all the slides, one after the other, and you have 50 slides. It's going to be cumbersome. But I can get this done on my slide master, and then it applies to all. I just want to create a logo. Let's use the shapes we have to create a logo. Okay, I can use this. Let's use this and then type something, maybe HSAS. I want to change the font to something else, maybe this. Okay, and make it bold. So I've inserted the logo here, and this logo is going to be inserted across all the slides. So if I close my master view, so you see, the reason why it's not inserted here is because I hid the background graphics for this. So from my slide master, I hid the background graphics for this. So for this. So I can just copy it, and then for this one I can paste it here. So I have my logo across all my slides. Okay. Then inserting transition and animation is not actually difficult. I'm not going to talk about these ones. I'm not also going to talk about doing your slideshows. So let me give room for us to ask questions. Please go ahead and ask your questions if you have. Okay, so I've never given us assignment, but in today's class, I'm going to give us an assignment we're going to turn in on Friday. The assignment is choose a topic of your choice using PowerPoint. You know, there are other tools you can use to create presentations, but we want you to create your presentation from the scratch. Now, using PowerPoint, create a powerful presentation that will contain visuals, communicate effectively. Assume that your audience, who will your audience be? Okay, assume your class people are your audience, and you are giving 10 minutes for a presentation. No, 10 minutes is too small. Let's say you have 20 minutes. You want a minimum of 7 slides that will contain the message you want to pass across. Use visuals, use pictures, you can use charts also, and then create your content the way you want it to be. Let it be more beautiful than this is not fine. Maybe I'm going to do my own presentation too and share with you on the group. So let it be more beautiful than the conventional slides you see. And don't use any of these themes you have here on PowerPoint. Create your own style and your own design, your own way. So that's the assignment from the classes we've had from on Microsoft Word, Excel, and then this PowerPoint. So create your own presentation, send it into the group latest 4 p.m. on Friday. Questions, comments? Okay, please give me a thumbs up if
Ma,
good.
where
Yeah?
are we to how are we to submit the assignments? Are we to submit it on the group chat, or will there be a mail that will be
Yes.
sent to us?
No.
Okay.
Send it on the group chat. We want to see what
Okay.
everybody has done. Yeah.
Okay, ma.
All right. Any other comment? Any other question? So remember, you are to choose a topic of your choice, 7 slides. Don't use the conventional themes that we have. and then use very strong visuals. Let your content be engaging. Assume your audience to be your fellow interns on this group. Okay, so in the absence of any other thing, I think we can call it a day.